Welcome to the North Witch Podcast with your hosts Azariel Flame and Sandra Von Holland. In this podcast, we explore all the things that can help us to be better and improve our lives in body, mind, and spirit. Looking at everything from witchcraft, sorcery, woo-woo, spirituality, biohacking, the mundane, and everything in between. We occasionally have on guests from various backgrounds, practices, and philosophies. We welcome everyone from all walks of life, from the left-hand path to the right-hand path, from the medical to the holistic, from the woo-woo to the scientific, and everything in between. We have conversations and discussions about our experiences over the years, what works for us, what hasn't worked, and explore new theories and science, trying them out, seeing what works, and debunking what doesn't. Thank you for joining us on this wicked adventure along the crooked path as we adventure into the mysterious and wonderful world and welcome what truly works for us to become better witches, sorcerers, magicians, and our best selves so that we can live our best lives. May these conversations help you to ignite the light within. The views expressed by our guests on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of us here at North Witch Magic Co. All of the information shared on this podcast is anecdotal and shared for entertainment purposes only, and does not constitute medical or financial advice. Always consult a doctor, physician, or professional in their field before trying any of the things that may be discussed on this channel. Magic and holistic healing should work alongside allopathic care when necessary. Okay, welcome back to another episode of the North Witch Podcast, and today's lovely guest is Sara Mastros. Sara is a author with Red Wheel Wiser and has published 2 books now, the Book of Magical Incense and the Orphic Hymns Grimoire. How's it going today, Sara?
It's going very well. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing really, really good. I've also noticed that you are now launching and really going and advertising your witchlessons.com, which is a really cool thing. So what kind of courses are you offering on there right now?
So right now, the 2 classes that are running live, like we're doing live sessions, are Introduction to Witchcraft, 13 lessons in practical spellcraft. We just finished lesson 3, so like it would be easy for somebody who wanted to join now to catch up to the cohort. And as is the case in every class I teach to adults, many people are still on lesson 1, which is not a complaint. I will say if I was in this class, I would probably either read the whole thing the night I got it or be way behind. I'm a bad student. It's true. And then I am
That's
also
awesome,
reading. I like it. I feel like the classes are pretty chill. The only reason I think it's beneficial to keep up with the class is I know for me, really shame is the only thing that motivates me to do anything. So if I have a study buddy who I promised I would do my reading for, then I do it. But if it was just me, I probably wouldn't. So one of the things I really encourage in the class is people working together. I think that's really important in magic generally. I don't know you guys magical origin stories, but I know when I was coming up in magic, I think many people had co-magicians relatively early in their magical career. And now I feel I routinely run into people who practice for decades and have never done magic in the same room as another person, which is not bad, but I just think they're missing out. I genuinely, you know what it is? It's not, it is, I guess, I think learning happens better collaboratively, blah, blah, blah. But it's also it's just so fun. They're really, at least for me, there is almost no thrill in my life as much as working magic with other people, hand in hand, sharing breath, conspirare, sharing breath, sharing spirit in the same room. I love it.
Well, it builds all the community. And I think
exactly.
The community of it just builds and builds, and you just get more out of it when you're sharing as a community.
Yeah, I agree. So that's one of the things I really focus on in the intro class is trying to hook people up with other learning magicians, because even though it's an introductory class and it's designed for people, it is designed so that you can come in having never read anything that really is your first glimpse at it. But most people in the class actually do have some experience. And so that really adds a richness because different people are bringing lots of different things to the table, which I really like. And then the other class I am running live right now is the Planetary Pentacles of Solomon Magician King, which people could also join now if they wanted, but we're actually most of the way through that course already. So they would get videos of all the back courses, but they might want to just wait a couple months until the class restarts for that one. And then This is not official yet, actually. I mean, I guess if I tell it to you, it's official now. I think the next class, when the Solomon class ends, I think we're probably gonna launch like an intermediate tarot class, which would be a little bit divination, but I think I really want to talk about like using tarot in spellcraft. So I think there will be a class on that in a couple of months.
Love it.
But it's not quite like, I don't have an exact curriculum for it yet, but it's on the horizon.
That sounds awesome.
Fantastic. So you're always evolving. You're doing more and more and more.
I get bored, honestly. Like, I would not want to, honestly, that's my favorite thing about like being in this business instead of other jobs I have had, is that like I just get to do all different things. And so it's never boring, which is my favorite thing about it.
Absolutely.
Crazy good. Like that's the dream, really.
Yeah. I love my job. Like, very few complaints.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I had the time to actually go and I did your lesson 1 in your introduction to witchcraft, and I thought it was fantastic. I absolutely loved your perspective of bringing in the little girl and making the everybody want to act like children and really bring out that inner play. I think that's really important and a aspect that a lot of people really miss in doing magic, and I think it's really cool that you bring that in the first.
I see so many beginners who are scared, who are just scared to do magic, and they've read so many books. And like, look, I like books. I'm never going to encourage people to read less books, but they have this idea that they have to like have a master's degree in the history of sorcery before they're allowed to cast a spell. And so I really think that like just sort of like playful magic really like breaks open that like cultural prison that we've all put ourselves in, that like doing magic is like a weird, shameful thing to do. But that's nonsense. That's just imperial programming. But I really feel like play is always the best way to break through that kind of shame about magic or anything else.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I even let my, I have a 12-year-old daughter who's just starting to explore this, and I let her read part of the lessons, and she just absolutely loved your teaching style on it. So within like 15, 20 minutes, she was like, "Can we do this one, Dad? This is awesome." So
nice.
If you can captivate my attention and the attention of a 12-year-old, I think it's a very awesome crossover for people to learn from, because
thank you.
That's a very wide range that you'll be able to reach with that.
Yeah, so I encourage people to do it like with their kids. I will say though, like just to anybody listening, like that intro class is not designed for kids, and there are definitely things in that class you don't want a young kid like lesson 1 is very little kid friendly. Yeah. And broadly, like the material is kid friendly, but it would definitely have to have like a parent between the lesson and the kid. Like, for example, I think in lesson 11, I teach sex magic.
Okay, well, fair
which
enough.
Like maybe not for your 12-year-old. That's what I'm saying. So I really want to encourage people, like, I'm down for you to teach that to your kids, but like, don't just let your kids read.
Don't just chuck them into Sarah's
like, don't sign up your kid. I've been thinking a lot, like actually get a lot of requests for like a kids class, but I don't have kids, and I taught high school, but that's not the same as teaching like children. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But if anybody listening, right. I get asked for like kids materials all the time. So if anybody listening is like a witch and an elementary school teacher who wants to make, like, I encourage you to write those books or make those lessons. There is definitely a market for that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a big gap.
Yeah, like that's probably the number one question I get asked in terms of like what people want is kids materials, and I just don't really have anything for them except like just read more fairy tales. Like that's how I learned when I was a kid, and that worked great. So
yeah, absolutely. I think you've done really well, like going with your first lesson there. If you kind of went with something like that, you'd do well. I have a course that I do teach kids. I've taught my kids it and some of their friends and whatever, and it's called Color Reiki for kids. And so it's cool. It's using the 7 colored rays of the rainbow, like you do in your class,
right?
And then we teach them how to manipulate the energy with just using color and play and things like that. So I think that's probably why I resonated. Do you teach that
online? Like, can I send people to you next time I get that question?
I haven't been for a while, but yeah, I've been really considering it because we get so many people asking about classes for kids, and Reiki's just let's manipulate energy with our hands and channel it and whatever. And so to be able to do that with just colors and whatever it's a really cool. It's a good intro.
Yeah, I love colors as an an intro, as you mentioned, even for adults. That's what's in lesson 1, which is on YouTube, by the way. If anybody wants to watch this lesson 1, it's on YouTube. But yeah, that you should make that class happen.
Well, I will work on that for sure. Absolutely.
Voila, there we are.
All right. So, Mom, you were reading up on Sara's book there. Did you have any questions that jumped out at you right off the bat there? We do have some listener questions here, but let's see what you got.
I have a few different things. I'll just shameful plug, Sara. Here's Sara's book. We actually fight over this book, like truly, because it's like, I want the book. So obviously at the shop, we need to order in a whole bunch more.
I can help you do that.
Yeah, I think we know the right people. And I loved, like, before we pressed record on here, I loved what you were saying about your book of that you want it to be all messed up after.
Oh yeah, so we were saying about like,
use it.
Right, we were saying about how we all prefer paperbacks to ebooks, and I was saying that like this book in particular, it's really my hope that people like crack the spine and lay it open on their counter, and that like what I really want is in a couple years I want people to send me photos of their book just like totally ruined, like all the best cookbooks, right? So it just has like stains and smears and oil spills all over it. That's like my goal for this book, is that it really like be used, right? And that it inspire you to make incense and do magic. That's Absolutely. The goal of the book.
And it has that perfect feel, like you totally want to. So here you are at the rosemary page. So I can totally see just bookmarking it with a piece of rosemary, right? Like you're actually use the book. And we've at the shop, we do make our own incense as well. So we do reference your book quite often to go, oh, what does Sara say? So yeah. We do love it a lot. And like I said, we do fight over it. So
I mean, I'm happy to send you a second copy.
And then I was looking up some more things about you because of course we love this, but I'm like, what else is she about? Because she's about so much. And now I've forgotten because I didn't take my notes from the shop to home. Your bowls.
Okay. So Babylonian incantation bowls, they're sometimes called Babylonian demon bowls, are a kind of broadly home protection magic from mostly Jewish Babylon. So like maybe like earliest starting around maybe like 400 CE and then running. I mean, most places will tell you like running into like the maybe 900s, but like I still make them. So I don't know I don't know how they're putting an end cap on that. That's a thing I do right now in 2022. And so they're really interesting because, you know, they're archaeological artifacts. So like a lot of what we know about them, we found them in a place, right? So they have a real context to them, but they're also texts because they have a magical text like written inside the bowl. And because of like the nature of the kind of magical text it names the magician who made it and like the people who live in the house and like all the things they're protecting against. So it gives us like this really sort of like fascinating look into the culture, right? So one of the things we learn, for example, is that like these were professionally made by like a village magician. We can tell because there will be like, and these were really popular, like in some places where we actually get, I say we, like as if I'm the archaeologist digging them up. You know, people do that, not me. Right? But we dig them up like in Nippur, they found, I mean, almost every house had one, right? They were really quite common. But you will find that like in a whole section of town, like the bowls are clearly all written by the same person who is not any of the people who live in the house, right? And you know, the names tell us really interesting things about like the ethnicity. So like they were often like made by Jewish magicians for non-Jewish clients. They were often made by women, which I find really interesting. We don't always see, like, magic has always been a profession that was engaged in by women as well as men, but I feel like the historical record doesn't always like show us what women are doing as well as men. So I both make those bowls as home protective elements, but I also teach a class in them. So there's a lesson on
that one totally spoke to me as soon as when I was scrolling things, all things Sara Mastros, and it's like,
I really love that like super niche kind of thing because I feel like when you have a really narrow topic, you can really like dig into all the like technical details and talk about how like, so those style of effectively exorcisms, right? So there's different kinds, but a lot of them they're trying to exorcise like a specific kind of spirit. And they're often written as like a divorce decree, which I feel like is a really cool way to frame it. Yeah, that's really common in like Near Eastern and like Levantine magic and North African magic, is to frame an exorcism as a divorce, which I really like.
I think it's a class I will totally dive into that, because it's a protection bowl and all the things, it just really, really spoke to me. So
yeah, so there's like some technical academic stuff about the bowls, but then I also just teach people how to make bowls.
Love it. Love that.
Awesome.
And then I cut you off because you thought I was going to the second book, but I
did.
Went way over there. So how about the second book? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is actually my first book that came out. It's Orphic Hymns Grimoire. They're new translations of the Orphic Hymns, which are a collection of sacred poetry from ancient Greece. There's 88 of them, so it sort of covers all the like usual suspects of Greek mythology, and then like some more obscure spirits, including some spirits that until quite recently in archaeology terms, like we only knew about from the Orphic hymns, but in the last like 20 or 30 years, we've started like digging up some things in Anatolia that have those same names on them. So there's like some interesting obscure stuff for like ancient Greek nerds, but it's all translated into modern English. And then there's like history and commentary and spells that go along with it. And there's also icons, right, for the gods to work with, and they're like coloring book style, so I really encourage people to like color them in. We were talking before, I really like color as sort of a magical paradigm, I guess is a way to talk about it, and I feel like the act of coloring in images is a really good way to sort of like attend to the image and like allow the spirit to sort of like slowly come forth in the image, right? So when I color them, for example, I always save the eyes for last, and then I do those and like open up their eyes so they're alive. Nice. That's something I really like. And then a second edition, which has more material in it, will be out from Hadean, I believe in September. You'd think I would know when. I think September or November. In the fall.
People that keep that in line for you.
Oh, I really don't actually. Like I'm just bad at organizing my own life. I think September, in the fall, anyhow. It'll be out from Hadean, a second edition. Nice. So first edition is still for sale, but it's going to go out of print pretty quick. So if people want a first edition, they should buy it soon.
That's a good plug. We'll put that at the bottom where they can get it.
I mean, I'm not trying to like, hard sell people. Like, you could also wait for the second edition, which like, is in some ways better.
Sure you'll just want both.
I think so.
Those of us who love books just want all, right?
Yeah. And this one is, so this one was self-published, and I think that gives it a certain charm. But like, I think readers will see that perhaps graphic design, like I didn't do the illustrations, right? I'm an illustrator and he did these amazing illustrations, but the actual like layout of the book maybe is not as good as when a real publisher does it.
Or maybe it'll be just spectacular because
I think it'll be cool. Yeah, it's quirky. It's like, right? I think you really like get to see inside my mind by reading that book, which, I got to say, I love it in here. So.
Oh, and even your incense book, that's one thing that I absolutely love about it, is it's like I'm sitting there having a conversation with you and you're just kind of going, oh, do this and grab that and sniff this, and like your one description you had in there was the best description for picking out resins or herbs or whatever I've ever heard. It's like you have the munchies and you're standing in front of the refrigerator. We've all been there. We all know that feeling. We all know that pull you get when that perfect piece of food is staring at you. So I thought that was the best description ever for how to pick your items and build your own friends.
And I feel like sometimes it's frustrating in the same way where you like close the refrigerator or the incense pantry and then open it again, hoping that miraculously something new has appeared in it in that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in keeping a like well-stocked witch pantry, which I think some people think I mean like buy a lot of weird exotic things online, but that's not what I mean at all. I mean like wander around in the woods and like when you find a cool rock, ask to be allowed to take it home. Or like, I think sometimes when people look at like ancient recipe books, they get this idea that like the person who was designing this spell like called for this really specific ingredient and they have to get exactly that. But I think it goes the other way, right? Like I have a lot of spells that I do with volcano ash. But that's because one time at a yard sale, I found an entire box of like little vials of like for tourists of Mount St. Helens ash. So
Right.
I actually just have a lot of volcano ash laying around. And that's why it's in my spells, right? And I think that that's kind of the way it is, right? I think when you have that sort of like, it's just like any other kind of like art supply, right? When you have like a cabinet of weird to just stare into, like the spirits in the cabinet will talk amongst themselves and give you ideas.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and then you can go the other way too. And, like really good cooks, you can give them 3 or 4 ingredients.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Throw a really good recipe at you, right? So I think magic is kind of the same way. You
Mhm.
learn just as much from poverty and not having as you do from having a big bouquet of options, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I really wanted to do in the book because when I was learning this, I was really frustrated by recipe books because they didn't like explain why they had put those things in there. So like if I didn't have one of them, I didn't really know how to substitute because I didn't understand why any of those things were in the recipe. And I really wished the book would have explained that. So that's my goal in this book is to like, I really tried to go through the ingredients in detail and talk about their magical virtues, but also talk about like what facts about the plant let me know that it had that magical virtue, right? Because I can't write about every plant in the world, right? There's too many. And I really encourage people to like use the plants that grow near them, right? So particularly for people who live in like the desert, I don't really know anything about their plants, like no more than they do. Definitely, right?
Yeah.
So I tried to like talk about how to learn the virtues of a plant and talk about plants as examples of that. And then similarly in the recipes, like there are a lot of recipes, but the goal is really to use those recipes to like kind of explain different ways to make up a recipe and different ways to think about substituting so that people can make up their own recipes. But I feel like I think a very small pantry of ingredients, if you think about them carefully, lets you make like basically any kind of incense or potion you might want to make, right? With just a quite limited supply and all things that like you could get at the grocery store or like you could definitely wild harvest. So like I use mugwort a lot, but like at least where I live, mugwort grows everywhere. Like it's in every abandoned lot and every roadside ditch and every overgrown field has mugwort in it. And I don't know where other people live, but there's a lot, witching plants tend to actually be quite resilient weedy plants, so they're quite easy to find most of the time. And I really encourage people to like, instead of picking a list of witching herbs and then going out to find them, to really just like explore the land where they actually live and see what is available and then think about what to do with that, like build relationships with those particular plants.
For sure.
That's brilliant advice. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I love the advice that you did give in the book about, how the basics of how you can identify what your local flora and fauna might have to offer to you. And I think that's like an invaluable tip because like you say, the same stuff doesn't grow everywhere, like you just said you have mugwort everywhere. Well, I don't have a lot of mugwort here, but I have aconite in my backyard and I bet a lot of people don't, right? So
right. Yeah, exactly. I will say, like, I tried pretty hard to cover like a wide variety of plants, but there probably is a little bit of like a northeast bias in my plant selection. Right. So there's a lot of like.
Where are you at, Sarah?
In Pittsburgh.
Oh, right. I read that. We should have said that.
Whatever. I feel like people in Pittsburgh already know that, and people who aren't in Pittsburgh don't need to know that. Right?
There we go.
That's awesome.
I didn't mean to suggest everybody in the whole city knows me, but like.
So you also are a witch for hire.
Yes.
Do you do pretty well everything, or is there some certain specialties that you offer, or
Well,
what would you
I
like to get into
I
with that?
have, yeah, so I am willing to do, like, I theoretically do a wide variety of things, but the truth is I turn down a lot. These days, most of what I do as a witch for hire is like consulting with other magicians, right? Who want like help strategizing for a big magical work, or they're like going through something they don't understand and they want like just a second pair of eyes on it. In terms of just like straight up witch for hire, I still do some divination. Real estate magic is a specialty of mine, like buying and selling houses in particular. My dad was a realtor, so I like grew up in a real estate office. And then magic for teachers and students. I do sort of specialize in some of that as well. But you know, I guess what I'll say is I'm a prima donna, so I'll take the cases that are interesting.
Nice.
Fair enough. For sure.
But you know, if I'm not the right person to help somebody, I can always refer them to somebody who is. You know.
Yeah, for sure. And we all have our own nice little community that we can usually share people to. I've been sending people for your Pentacles class because
Oh yeah.
I've been enjoying the few lessons I've taken of it so far.
Oh, I'm glad you like it.
It's been quite great. So yeah, it's nice to see that you're offering these, and they're really affordable classes. So that's a nice thing. I mean, in the world of the occult right now, there's lots of, $3,000 courses and things like that just seem really out of touch for people. So it's
I try and keep everything real affordable, but also I'm always happy to work out like scholarship plans and barter for people. So
nice. Well, that's awesome. So
I've started just turning the price up for rich people and handing out more scholarships. That's my new strategy, is I'm just slowly turning prices up.
Turn up the dial.
I guess what I'm saying is I'd rather charge a millionaire $3,000 and then charge 5 people nothing than so we'll see.
Sure.
It's an experiment in pricing. I truthfully do not understand the witch economy at all. Like, I'm just doing things and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And I guess I feel lucky and blessed that, at least for me, like the business side of it mostly just kind of works itself out. Like, I do things that I think are cool and somehow people give me money for them, which is exciting. But also, like, being a nun is not that expensive. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, my costs, like, I don't have kids. So, like, my costs are pretty low.
Right. Do you want to talk about that? A little bit of your life like that?
Oh,
I think that would be interesting too.
Sure. So I consider myself a monastic, as I said. I am still in a novitiate period. I have not yet formally taken vows. I guess because others have suggested in the past that perhaps I have trouble with commitment. Though I also feel that some of them had trouble with autonomy. So I anticipate taking formal vows pretty soon. I'm sort of in that. The way it works is you actually have to be 44 to take a formal vow that I am considering, and I just turned 44. So it's like newly an option.
Now the pressure, though.
Yeah. No pressure. No pressure. Like, in fact, like, I'm joking. I am, in fact, sketchy about commitment. As I mentioned before, I like to do a lot of different things. But no, so that's going really well. The group I work with is called Sisters of the Croco Peplos. It's still very new, right? So it's still just a couple of us. Then we're all sort of like figuring it out. So if anybody is interested, I'm super happy to talk about it. We work in service to the goddess of the Croco Peplos, who is a goddess of liminality, learning, and liberation. And those are 3 things I like. I'm in favor of all of those things.
So that's working perfectly for you.
Yeah, I gotta say, like I don't want to jinx anything. Right. No evil eye here, but things are going reasonably well. I'm pretty happy. And being a nun is Interesting. Not, I have only recently started wearing the habit. Like, I think, I've been wearing it like when I work, right? So when I teach and when I like do magic, I've been wearing it for quite some time, but I've only sort of recently started wearing it in like everyday life. And it is like, it changes the way people behave with you in public in a way that is like fascinating and interesting. Like, people are so nice to you when you're dressed like a nun, like super nice to you all the time. Fascinating.
That's a whole nother book you could write.
Yeah,
I feel like
maybe
you get a
eventually.
book on that. That's that whole experience of the difference that it brings out.
I mean,
right?
I really like it. And it's, this sounds cheesy. It reminds me to be on my best behavior. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I took a highlighter and was like, hey, look at me. And there's like a way I have to like live up to that, which, I try.
It raises the bar.
It does. It's a totally different bar that I wasn't like. It lowers some of the bars. I will say I no longer routinely get pressure about when I'm going to have kids. It's pretty much solved that problem. Although I'm also 44, so maybe that has clued people in that I actually mean it. I get hit on much less in public when I'm wearing a nun outfit, which is interesting because, man, the people who hit on you when you're the people who hit on you when you're wearing a nun outfit are interesting people. Those are interesting fellows. But no, I'm really enjoying it. It's going well. So we're in the process of looking to establish an abbey, like a physical abbey where we can all like live and work together. But we are still in the early stages of like planning that. So I imagine that would be at least like 3 or 4 years out. But if anybody has ever thought about like, wish I could be a witch nun, you can be a witch nun. That's a thing you can be in the world. And it's fabulous.
See, and that was going to be my next question. Will you have to stop your magic once you take your vows, or is that something?
Oh, no. I work for the witch goddess. No. Definitely not.
That is great.
Yeah. To me, like the core elements of monasticism are about like the primary relationship in your life, right? Not being with a husband and like not being with children, not even being with like your family of origin, right? But being with like the divine and with your, I say sisters, but like people of whatever gender, siblings in the goddess of the Crocopeplus.
Yeah.
Right. But the way I always like to say it is that I'm married to the goddess, but it's an open relationship. So it's not like the only relationship in my life, but it is like the primary one, right? It's where like, it's the thing I am not willing to compromise for other people, is the way I think about it.
That's very cool.
That is.
I'm enjoying it.
Thanks so much for sharing that. That's just great insight.
I always wanted to be a nun when I was little, but I didn't really know what nuns were. Like, we were Jewish and not very religious, like Jewish. So I had like only the vaguest. Yeah, right. I mean, well, no, it's complicated. Like, Judaism is a tribal identity, and like as a cultural identity, like we were for sure Jewish. Like, we just like weren't religious, really. But yeah, here's what I knew about nuns. There was a monastery up this. I understand monasteries normally have monks and not nuns, but I'm telling you, this place up the street from my house, like their sign said monastery, and they had nuns and not monks. I assume that at one point in the past they had monks, but I don't know. Like, this is when I was young, so like I don't have a fully adult like understanding of that place. But it was up the street from our house, and I guess I knew that they like lived in a beautiful castle with like a magical garden with a statue of a goddess in it. And they like studied and chanted all day, and there were no boys. And like they didn't have to get married and have kids. And all of that sounded amazing. And I wanted to do that. But then I found, more about Catholicism and that. I definitely didn't want to be Catholic. That part didn't seem appealing at all.
Right.
But I always kind of wanted to be a nun. So eventually I was like, well, if nobody's going to have pagan nuns. I'm just going to make that happen. So then like about, I will say 6 or 7 years ago, I sort of set about to make that happen. And apparently other people did too. I've noticed that like a lot of other people's pagan monastic like things are happening now. In fact, a book just came out. I feel bad that I don't know what to tell people that book is called. I think it's called Pagan Monasticism. Something essays something. Like it's a book. If you tell Google pagan monasticism book, I think they'll know what book I mean. Oh, maybe polytheist, something like that. Anyway, so it just recently came out in the last
put that at the end of the.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
That.
Anyway, but it just came out. There's a lot of like interesting things happening right now in pagan.
They beat you to publishing the book.
I actually really wish I somehow just like missed. Like I didn't know anything about that book until it came out, which is partly I looked and like that call for submissions like I had COVID while that came out, so it just like wasn't on my radar.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish like I'd known that book was going to come out. I would have written an essay for it too. But it was interesting. One of the things I really liked is, there's like maybe 12 or 13 essays in it, and they're all very different. Like it was really inspiring me to see like what a range of like ways people are sort of building monastic lives for themselves. But there was always like a core of like not retreat from the world, right? But of holding a firm boundary with the world, right? Like, which I appreciated.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. So we do have a couple listener questions for you. Sure. One is that, so I know that Sara is a well-rounded magician and she works with both the upper and lower worlds. I was wondering if you could share with us your favorite single note incenses for working with the celestial beings and for working with the chthonic or infernal beings.
Oh, for the upper world, if I was just going to pick one, definitely frankincense. Or like my top choice would be frankincense, but you could branch out. Like I think depending where you live, right? If you have a resin tree with whom you are in relationship, right? So where I live, that's probably white pine is the most, like on the East Coast. In the Northeast, the most common like tree that you would harvest resin from is white pine. On the West, I would imagine maybe like pinyon pine. I mean, it depends where you live, right? But either frankincense or resin from your own personal like upper world tree. My favorite chthonic incense, probably mugwort or wormwood, some kind of artemisia. Again, depending on context. Yeah, I'm going to say if I had to pick a single one, if you're only going to stock 2 incenses, I think either frankincense or a local resin, and the other one mugwort or whatever like your local artemisia is. So like blue sage is also an artemisia. I mean I know the name makes it sound like it would be a salvia, and artemisias and salvias are similar. But yeah, mugwort for me, maybe wormwood.
Awesome. All right. That was a great answer, Sara. And I have another one that's probably going to make you laugh. Okay. Sara, I have tried to mix honey into my incense after reading your book so many times. And is it supposed to be as sticky as I am making it? Is it supposed to turn somewhat hard? Because mine is always very sticky and hard to handle after I've mixed it.
Okay. So you're just using too much honey. Like if it's sticky, just use less honey, but also it should be a little bit sticky. So you do have to like mix it a lot, and it is going to be like somewhat sticky. And then you want to like sort of spread it out like on a baking pan or something and just let it dry out overnight, and it'll be less sticky, but you're just using too much honey. Like another trick is like, particularly if you're making like a bigger batch, right? Like pull out some of the dry material so that after you add too much honey, you have more to add in, right? Because I know that's actually how I got into making professional incense. Is every time I made incense for myself, I would be like, oh, too much of this, better put more of this in. And then I would have like half a gallon of Venus incense that I was just like giving away because I had made way too much of it. And that's actually how I ended up in the incense business to start, is just making too much incense. If you're only making like a tiny, like if you're gonna make it and then immediately use it in a spell, right? You're not making it to like store. You could usually just leave the honey out and just use like the loose powder and put it directly on the charcoal. Like a lot of times I do that because a lot of time, one of the things I like about loose incense as opposed to like sticks, which I hate, I just think they're messy and a hassle. They go out in the middle of ritual. I'm sure that other people are somehow less slovenly than me, but like I just get that ash all over everything every time I use stick. I hate sticks, but even like cones, I just like loose incense better because I feel like loose incense, I can control exactly how much smoke I want during the course of like the magic. And also I just feel like there's just like a certain drama that it brings to a ritual when you like drop it onto the charcoal and you can like hear it sizzle and hiss and it like pops a little, and then you can like change what incense it is over the course of the ritual. So if you're making the incense like for a specific spell, I actually wouldn't mix it at all, right? Like I would just put the individual ingredients like bam bam bam, like I don't know, what's that TV chef? Anyway, like a TV chef, right? Like throw them on the charcoal with feeling in whatever order seems best to you at the time. But yeah, it's just too much honey. Sometimes if your honey is a little thicker, if you heat it up a little bit so it's just thinner, it's easier to pour like small amounts if you warm it up a little. But if you put like your honey jar in the microwave, it just like start with like 10 or 20 seconds. Honey gets like super hot, like napalm, and it will explode, or it will just like deform the plastic bottle, and then your bottle will never stand up or seal properly again. So, word from a person who has done this many times. Honey in the microwave, very, very short. It gets real hot real fast.
Yes.
But it just thins it out, so it's easier to pour.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then I see in your book, you say that pretty well any of your incense blends can be made into oils. Do you have any tips or tricks for steeping the oils? I remember reading in your book that using a crock pot is a good option. Do you always use the heating method, or do you sometimes leave it just in the dark closet for a couple months, or like what do
I
you
usually
recommend
do
most?
both. So I usually heat them. So I basically grind everything up as fine as I can grind it if I want to do a good job. But I mean, you don't have to. It works better. The more of the plant material you can get in direct contact with the oil, the better. But like if you don't have a grinder, you can just kind of like chunk it up by hand. It just takes longer, basically. And like I said, so there's instructions in the book, but I just put the plant material like in a jar, right? Fill it up with oil and then put a lid on, but not sealed, because you want steam to be able to get out if it has to, but you just don't want condensation dripping in. And then I just put it in the crock pot, like as low as it'll go, the slow cooker, and do it that way. And then I usually don't strain afterwards, right? So I do like a real gentle heat extraction, but then it's just sitting on the shelf. And I usually strain it when I use it. You could also, though, do them as essential oil blends. Just like the same ingredients. I will say, different plants will extract into the oil differently. So the proportions of it won't smell exactly the same in oil form as it will in incense form. So you want to kind of like play around with the proportions a little bit. But you can definitely basically use the same recipes with essential oils. Just, smell them. And if one of them seems much stronger than the other ones, use less of it. Right, like
makes sense.
Yeah, like the first time.
Mix with you.
Sorry,
so I want to come and mix with you.
Yes, please.
You're mixing all your brews.
Right. One day I'll figure out how to. I need to figure out how to film my counter, right, which I think I just need to get a second person to film me, and then I'll play TV, cook in my kitchen, making incense. It'll be fun.
For
It'd be
sure.
so
I used to
fun.
play TV. Like I used to play Julia Child when I was a little kid. It was like my favorite game.
Nice.
I don't know. It was a game I played.
Yeah.
That's one of those ones where I hope that scientists develop smell-o-vision by the time that you're ready to do that. So then we can
Right?
smell your blends as you're making them.
Yeah. Well, maybe it'll be like play along at home, right? Like I'll tell people in
Absolutely.
advance, like get these things, and then we'll all mix them together.
Yeah.
For
We need to do that. Put that on
All
our
right.
need to do list because
All
that'd be
right.
so fun.
I'm there for that. There is actually, if people look on YouTube, there is a video of me making house blessing incense, new home blessing incense, I think, which is like at the end of just like a little, there's like a half-hour lecture about incense basically. And I went through like, here are the 10 ingredients you should have to make the most incenses. And then there's like, you can watch me make it.
See,
I
so
think
you're already
it's-
started.
I'm trying. I'm playing more with, the truth of the matter is I'm not that comfortable on video. Like at this point, like since COVID, I'm just like my whole business is over Zoom now, basically. So I guess I've just gotten used to it. So I'm like willing to make more videos now. But the truth of the matter is like, it's like I can feel the camera trying to steal my soul. Like I just don't like it. Camera. I should like line my nunveil in tinfoil or something.
I can totally relate to that. Prior to the C word, you never would have seen me on a Zoom call or anything. And now it's like you say, it's how we do business now. It's so,
yeah. And I mean,
so
with
strange.
classes, it's it's less fun as a teacher. Like, no question. It's way more fun to teach people in person because in Zoom, like, I mean, half people don't even have their camera on. Like, you don't even know if they're there. It's just like teaching into the abyss and hoping people are there listening.
Yeah,
But
throw it out and see what sticks.
But I will say, like, as a student, I do appreciate all these classes that I don't have to like necessarily show up for at like 10 o'clock in the morning, which is not a time I'm willing to do things. But I feel like at least where I live,
Yeah.
like the witch classes at bookstores were sometimes like 10 a.m. on Saturdays. I was like, no, you're crazy. Like, I don't even get out of bed until noon. No.
Yeah, that's the
I'm
wrong
like
time.
fully nocturnal at this point, basically, which I guess I always was, but I also taught high school for a long time. And that was just brutal. Like I had to drug myself awake every morning and then drug myself to sleep every night. And I know people say you get used to a schedule change, but in like a decade of teaching, I never got used to it. Everything about my life improved when I was allowed to like sleep instead from like dawn until noon, which is basically when I sleep. And really like my health improved dramatically, my mood improved. I know I'm like still fat, but I dropped a ton of weight like in the first couple months after I was allowed to make that change. Like it really, I'm just a creature of the night apparently.
Well, yeah, you're listening to your internal clock, right? And allowing that to be.
Right.
So
I mean, the way I know it's like it's fucked up that like my ability to go to sleep when I'm tired and wake up when I'm not tired anymore is like an insane privilege that other people don't have. Like our culture is just deeply fucked with respect to time. But also, the way I think about it is like if I was Mother Nature, I would make sure that like 10-15% of the population was just naturally inclined to be awake for night watch.
yes.
So like, yeah, like
Right.
that's I just sort of often think about like, well, if I was Mother Nature designing humans, how would I do it? And then I assume that whatever Mother Nature did was better than that. Like she's at least as smart as me, much smarter. So like if even I'm like, oh, it's a bad idea. Why did you do that? Once I actually ask that question and think about it, I'm like, oh, that's why that works that way. That was actually brilliant. Good job, evolution.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, we need you night watchers. We need
Right.
you.
I really believe, I really do think that like nature is just amazing. And I really do, I guess I just have like, almost as a matter of faith, I do think it makes sense. Like when I look at things in the world that don't make sense, when I actually try to make them make sense, they do. You know what I mean? Like it's hard and I have to think about it for a little. Excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in like the close observation of nature as a mechanism for understanding the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, we have another listener question here for you.
Right.
And I think that they have been looking at your lessons here, because it says, I see that you teach oneromancy, trance, and journey work. I have tried to learn this in many different ways, and I find that I have trouble either recalling my dreams or being able to get lucid. Do you have any tips or tricks with that? And do you have any tips or tricks for journey work without having to go to sleep if I'm not able to do that?
Yes. Let me talk about dreams first, and then I'll come back and talk about journeys, because I think for most people, dream work is a better place to start, right? Sadly, right, because of what I just said about our culture's fucked up relationship to sleep, the number one problem people have with oneiromancy is that they are chronically sleep deprived. And it's hard to do dream work in like your body will prioritize like regular, at the end of the day, the kind of dream work we do as magicians is not like regular healthy dreaming. Like there is an amount of like normal healthy dreaming that's just your brain like putting itself back together that you need. Like you need that, right? You in order to keep living, and your body will always prioritize that over like whatever kind of wacky magic dreaming you want to do. Usually your body will usually prioritize that. So my first recommendation is that they need more sleep and higher quality sleep, which I do appreciate is like easy for me to say, but hard for people to make happen. Other things that can help, right, are alcohol and marijuana both suppress dream recall. So do less of that if that's a problem for you. But for me, the most reliable way to do it is to like wake up and then go and like actually wake up, like get out of bed, go to the bathroom, maybe even like do something for like half an hour, and then go back to sleep for an hour or two. For me, that like second piece of sleep is much more like that's where it's pretty easy to get those kind of magical dreams, and it's much easier to remember your dreams. And I really think it's mostly because like you allowed your body to get like good healthy sleep, and now you're giving it extra sleep to do magic. And so that's, I think, like that's my biggest piece of advice for that, right? The other thing is all the advice that they have probably already heard, right? Which is like as soon as you wake up, write something down, even if what you write down is like, I did not recall my dreams tonight. I liked the way that person framed it, right, as trouble remembering their dreams and not trouble having dreams, right? So, and I think that's useful, right? I think when you can recall, and it's sort of the same in journey work, right? That like the part that's hard is like bridging the gap between that sort of dream brain state and your regular waking brain state. Like you have to be able to bridge it in order to get the dream back to your waking life, right? And I think if you really focus in on that as the place where you're having the problem, then that can help a lot just psychologically to like remember that you are maybe having these experiences and you're having trouble remembering them and like bringing them back. But it really is mostly about poor sleep quality and like is why you don't remember dreams usually, or marijuana. I mean, a significant amount of people I talk to who are having trouble remembering dreams, it's marijuana, which like I understand. I mean, like, you, and really, especially if you're waking up again and going back to sleep, I mean, you had to be real high when you went to bed to still be high like 6 hours later when I'm telling you to wake up for a while. So like, just don't smoke. Like in that hour you get up in between, don't smoke then, go back to bed sober. And that can help a lot. And then journey work. Personally, I find headphones super helpful because like in the city where I live, it's I mean, even at like 4:00 in the morning when I'm sometimes doing it, like I don't know if you guys can hear the train outside. I guess not because I have a mic on, but like there's a train going by right now. Right. And so I find that the headphones and like some white noise really help. I personally like a like randomly evolving white noise because I kind of like let just like in spirit evocation, right? You will sometimes use incense smoke as like a medium for spirits to manifest visually in the like rain noise or ocean noise or whatever you choose. Like it gives spirit voices, like a medium in which to manifest. I really like a very strong drum beat. I find that extremely helpful. I'm trying to think. Here's what I will say. There's really two ways to have trouble at trance journey, right? There's people on sort of one end of the spectrum, perhaps like me, who are like maybe uptight control freaks who are having trouble letting go. And then on the other end of the spectrum, right, there's people who perhaps also like me are just having trouble paying attention. Right. But it really is like, that's the tension, right? Is like, those are the only really two ways to fail at it, is to not let go sufficiently or to let go too much. Right. And it really is about like finding that liminal window in between. And I think when people are beginning, the ability to hold inside that narrow window is like a developed skill. So when you're first learning it, like you might be able to find that trance place, but you might only be able to stay there for like very short periods of time. And that's okay. Like just don't freak out about it. Like have a very short trance experience, like take some notes and then don't go immediately back down. Like it's not productive to try and do it over and over. You'll psychologically burn out, but also I think it's like maybe not physically good for you to just be pushing out of your body over and over and over in short succession. Like get back to yourself, like drink some water. I can't explain why, but trance journey makes me super thirsty. And I don't realize I'm thirsty until I start to drink. And then I'm like, oh, are mystical visions made out of water? Is that where my water went? Like, I don't understand the mechanism by which trance journey makes you so thirsty, but I don't think it's just me. I think that's just a universal fact that it's thirsty work for some reason.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, right? But nobody has really explained to me like physiologically why that should be the case, unless it's just that you're breathing through your mouth. It might be that.
One theory that we had with a big group that was doing journey work was that you're actually chewing through electrolytes because you're using so much more power in your brain. And so we actually found that if you take salts in before you do your journey work in your water, that we had less thirst when we were done doing the journey work.
Oh, that's fascinating. I'm going to try that.
That's
so like
theory.
Gatorade before the journey?
Yeah.
All right,
so
I'll try
a Gatorade, or you can get those little noon packets or whatever and dump in your water. Try that. I have found it works. It's just a theory.
All right.
I have no hard science to back it up, but
interesting. I will definitely try it. But yeah, so just try it in like little short bumps, basically, right? And see if that helps, but also address your chronic sleep deprivation, I guess. Can you remind me if I actually answered their question? Well, that was their question, right? They just wanted general trance advice.
Yeah, just help to get into trance or journey if they weren't able to recall their dreams.
Sadly, I really do. I mean, there are like chemical supports they can try. So they can try like a dream recall oil or something like that. They can try like a dream incubation spell work, but I actually think the thing that they should try is getting more sleep.
For sure. And I mean,
but I know that's like not a fun witchy answer. It's a very like grandma nun, like go to bed earlier kind of.
I'm sure they were expecting flying ointment or, smoking something, but
Yeah.
Well, and don't you also think that maybe lowering your expectations, right? I mean, you've started and yet like, you're doing journey work and you, whatever your group is that you're doing it with, like Azariel is really good at it. And so if we compare to him and our first few times, it's like, I don't remember anything. And I think the frustration gets in the way. I think you have to back up.
I agree. And I also think like, I want to commend this person for like admitting that they don't remember things, because we all know people who are recounting journeys or dreams. They are obviously lying. Like they're clearly making it up. You can tell even they don't believe what they're saying. Like it's written all over. So like, I actually think like long term, it is a good sign, right? It's a sign that like you're not just projecting or deluding yourself, because if you were, you'd be doing that. Right. So it means that like as you get success, you're going to get real success. But it really is just like kind of a matter of practice. And I will also say, like, it takes a long time. So when I was first learning like trance descent, the kind where you like go down, down, down the roots of the world tree, or like however you teach it, but the kind where you go down, like Alice down the rabbit hole is the way I think about it. The first many times, the first several months, like it took me a while to get any success at all, right? And then after that, it took quite like I was just going down, but like not getting anywhere for a long time. Like it took the first couple times I made it to like, I call it like the womb of being, but whatever we call like the like landing pad at the bottom of the going down, you know, like it took me the first couple times, it took me a good 40 minutes of going down to actually get there. But that gets so much faster. Like once you do it successfully a couple times, it's like it's kind of lubricated, and then you can just kind of like slide down pretty quick. But it really is like, I agree, like don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Like it's mostly just practice. And you know, it's like we were saying at the very beginning, I think try also and come to it with just like a like attitude of playfulness, because I think like a lot of things like performance anxiety can just get in the way of actually doing the thing. So it's like, it should be fun. And if you're not having fun doing it, like just stop and do something else. Like if your practice stops being fun as a beginner, right? Like I understand as we progress, sometimes there's just like some hard grinding work you got to put in to like learn biblical Hebrew or like translate it, you know what I mean? Like there's some actual work. But like when you're starting something, if it's not fun in the beginning, like why are you even doing it? Just do something else and like come back to it, because everything you learn, like everything's connected. So if you're having a lot of trouble with one technique, just like stop and go do some other kind of magic. And then when you come back, the things you learned there, you can like bootstrap into anything, because all the beginner magic skills are all closely related. So like you can always use one of them to get you over the edge in another one. So like whatever it is you do feel like you're strong in, lean into that and do some magic there to help you with the dream magic, right? So like if you find you're really effective at candle magic, then start doing some candle magic about like trance magic, right? Or if you're really into, I'm suddenly drawing a blank. If you're really like into herbs, then maybe you want to make like a dreaming tea that you take before you go to bed, right? And all of those things. But I really do think that for dreaming and trance in particular, good, solid, healthy sleep and not too many drugs is actually the best remedy. But I really wish that, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Oh, maybe you guys didn't even hear that. Sorry. My FaceTime just started ringing at me like somebody's trying to call
funny.
me. But I would much rather be talking to you. Yes, I mean, I don't know who it was, but nobody, I mean, truth be told, nobody I want to talk to calls on the phone. Like everybody knows that I'm not going to answer the phone. So like if somebody wants to get me on the phone, they always send an email like, can you call me? Because I never answer. Yeah, so I think like if you're not getting success with trance, you can try elsewhere. I'm trying. Oh, okay, here's a couple like just pro tips for trance. Keep your spine straight and touch the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth. Like not so far back that you're choking yourself, but like slide it back a little bit. And like, I'm not a really sophisticated like yogi or whatever, so I can't really explain to you why that works, but it somehow like closes an energy circuit between like your throat and your third eye and like the back of your head in some way, touching your tongue there. I learned that trick from Jason Miller, who I'm going to imagine learned it from like Bon Tantra probably, because that's, I don't know. He has like fancy like He has a lot of that like more embodied energy body work in like genuine lineage than I do. Like I just learned it on the streets the dirty way. So yeah, but that can really help. And also I've seen some people, I don't run into this as much, but I feel like for a while, some people got it into their head that like the best way to induce like a mystical trance state was to be very uncomfortable. And so like they take these like insane yoga poses that are intended to be like a stretch you do for 2 minutes. And then they're just trying to like rigidly lock their body into that for half an hour. And I feel like one, that's definitely going to get in the way of what you're trying to do. And also just as like an old person, I don't think that's very good for your hips. So like when something hurts, that's your body telling you to stop doing that.
Don't do that.
Yeah. But like, I don't like pain. I actually feel like I recently had a quite serious, like I call it an injury, a mystery inflammation crisis that was a mystery, but also definitely happened immediately after I got a vaccine shot. But anyway, so I was in like really quite serious, couldn't walk pain for a couple of months. And it really like pain is not conducive to anything. Like it was very hard for me to be in trance. I mean, being not in my body was appealing, but like the pain was just like an alarm going off in the back of my head all the time. And so, I always tried to have compassion for people with chronic pain, but a couple months of chronic pain really gave me a new compassion for people who are doing that all the time, because I really just wanted to murder everyone I was around all the time. So yeah, like that's another tip is like, be physically comfortable, but try and be physically comfortable in a way that keeps your spine vertical if possible.
Yeah, makes total sense. Absolutely. That was a really good in-depth description there. I think they're going to be really happy with that.
Also, I teach a class, so they could come take a class from me.
Nice.
Yeah,
like I have 50 more pages of that advice.
We will have to be totally engaging in your classes. I'm so intrigued. This has been awesome. Fantastic to learn more about you and all your magical awesomeness. I'm loving it.
I try really hard to be the teacher that like I wish I had when I was coming up. Like that's how I taught high school, and that's how I teach witchcraft. So I appreciate that that's maybe not the right teacher for everybody. But right. If you like this, I just do this the whole time.
Oh, your whole energy is so good.
Thank you.
It's just there. It's great.
I love teaching. So even like you guys know that like right before we actually started recording, I was like, oh, I've had like a terrible day. But as soon as I like start, like I genuinely just love magic. It's like I'm so excited about it. I'm happy to talk about it all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I'm the same way. I can be having a terrible day, and then I do one of these and it's like, oh, I get to hang out with my people. This is fantastic.
Right? It's like the second best thing after actually doing magic with other people.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Which I get to do tomorrow. I have coven meetings on Fridays.
Oh, nice.
Yay.
So if people want to get a hold of you to hire you for a reading or some services or anything like that, where can they find you?
Witchlessons.com will take them to the courses page of my website, but that's just the easiest URL to remember, and they can get to everything else from there. But also, like, my name is highly Googleable. So like if you just put Sara Mastros in quotes into Google, I am, as far as I know, the only Sara Mastros on the planet. Like my family name got changed at Ellis Island relatively recently. So they're like, I am reasonably confident that I am closely related to every Mastros in the world. So if you Google me, I'll come up.
I Googled you and you came up. It was great.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think if you put me in quotes, it's just me, basically.
Yeah.
I think if you Google hard enough, you can find like reviews of high school students telling people that I'm a mean calculus teacher. And also that I'm a nice calculus teacher. I mean, it depends, which kid you ask. As you might imagine, teenagers are a little fickle. Mostly they say that I'm hard but fun. That I will say is my overwhelming review from students. My favorite review from a student ever was that I am the Kung Pao chicken of math teachers, which I chose to interpret as a compliment. But I really have no idea what they were trying to say with that sentence.
It sounds fabulous.
Well, I'm allergic to peanuts, so it's a little weird. I'm given to understand that for people for whom Kung Pao chicken won't kill them, it's a compliment.
That's awesome. Okay, and so you have your next book, or your Orphic Hymns book, is being reprinted at Hadean. You said that should be about this fall.
Yes.
And your book is able to be found pretty much anywhere on Magical Incense.
Yep,
So,
anywhere. From my point of view, the best place to buy it is to like call your local book witch store and ask them to order it for you. I think.
Which
I know I'm
North
preaching
Witch
to the
magic shop.
I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I feel like for a lot of younger people people who are newer to our community, I think like they don't always appreciate like how important a community infrastructure those stores are. Like we need those, right? And having lived in places where there wasn't one, it's hard. Like those are the backbone of witch community, like actual in-person witch community. So I really encourage people to like support them. And so I'd much rather you bought my book there. You can also, if you want an autographed copy, buy it directly from me.
awesome.
Or I guess, honestly, if you ask at your witch store, they can buy an autographed copy from me and sell it to you.
Ooh, now isn't that great? We can have a shipment of autographed books coming in.
I can do that.
Yeah, we might have to talk to you about that.
Hey, let's talk about
I could
that.
definitely do that because I stocked way up in preparation for festival season, and then boom, 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 all my festivals got canceled. So I got a lot of boxes of books that I'm like looking at right now.
Well, we will talk to you for our next order then, probably.
Awesome.
Absolutely. I just think that's a whole next level to have them all signed.
Fancy.
Just makes sense, right? We like the fancy. Well, this has been absolutely lovely. You are absolutely brilliant and your energy exudes just so much, and it's been great.
Awesome. Well,
Great,
thank you
great.
guys for having me. I really did have a good time after what was, in fact, not a great day.